Today we're going to talk about how the Maah Daah Hey 100 went, and if you're here for the cinematic shots, well, you're going to have to wait until this winter. This is a race recap, and it's all onboard footage. Let's go! If you're new here, my name is JP. I'm a teacher and filmmaker here in northern Minnesota. I also live with bipolar disorder. And for the last 12 episodes, I've been bringing you on a journey to get me to the starting line of this year's Maah Daah Hey 100, which is what we're gonna talk about today. Welcome to the Bootleg Miles. The race starts at Triple C Campground, and honestly the first few miles of the single track are pretty tame until you get to the never-ending switchbacks. Now, these went pretty well for us, and when I say us, I'm talking about my good friend Derek Wallace, who was riding the entire race with me no matter what happened. Total wingman for life. When we got to the top of the never-ending switchbacks, instead of going straight, as the race has forever, we hung a left at the water cache box. Derek and I were sitting 18th and 19th overall. We had a feeling that the gravel dads might smash it on this new 10-mile section of gravel, and we were right. Very quickly, the trains of people started passing, but we were resolute to stick it at 200 watts and keep it easy peasy and save those matches for later. When we got off the gravel 10 miles later, we were in 37th and 38th place. It was time to get to work. Through aid 1 and check B, we started to pick people off. But in the juniper trees and sagebrush canopy before Devil's Pass, I started to feel off. The sun had come out and the heat was really cranking up. And despite being very heat acclimated, I was starting to overheat. And I was honestly starting to panic, because overheating at mile 40 and having problems there, that's a recipe to ruin the day. But early that morning, Gordon Wadsworth had sent me a message. Gordon said, "Stay dug in today, bro. Stay in target. All things pass. Dig in, admire every stroke, and live through it all." All day those words were in my head, and I went into full-on heat management mode. Dousing myself with water, basically forcing myself to sweat, taking in as many calories as I could, anything I could do to get my body going. And guess what? 15 minutes later, as we went across Devil's Pass, I had come around and I felt awesome. We crossed the river and made it to aid 2 and continued to pick people off. And despite being roughly an hour behind what we had hoped to arrive in aid 2 at, we were feeling really good. And we felt like we had set ourselves up for a really strong second half. After feeding at aid 2, we hit Valley of Death. And honestly, Valley of Death was kind of scary going in. In 2019 during the race, I had crashed on the descent. It is a crazy descent. And I had totally yard sailed it, so much so that the women's leader was following me that day and had no choice but to drive over me. And I still have bad memories. But this year, clean as a whistle. Down in the valley, I felt really good and I pushed the tempo. But as we began that ferocious climb back out, the sun was again beating me to death and I could feel myself falling apart. I finally just swallowed my pride, despite the fact that literally every person on our film crew was on the end of this climb, and I just got off and walked. My heart rate had gone nuts, I felt hot, and I knew I couldn't blow right now. But as soon as we got to the top, I went back into my normal routine of forced sweating with water, putting in the calories, and honestly, that was the last time all day that I would have one of those wobbles. Somewhere between check D and E, Derek put me on the front for good. And there's a couple reasons for this. One, drafting wasn't really important today. Wasn't useful, and more importantly, I could see. Something I don't think I've shared on here at least, is that in the 2023 accident, I lost depth perception, and it has never come back. I've of course developed a lot of workarounds, but those workarounds work best when there's not someone in front of me, as I'm trying to see clear trail and dodge the ruts and the snake houses. We didn't technically negative split the course, but it sure felt like it. In fact, we got ahead of our SAG crew's projections for where they should be meeting us in the second half of the race. They were flawless on the day. And honestly, once I figured out the cooling problems, we were really on track. The only mechanical we had to deal with all day was when my Access battery died mid-trail and we swapped, and we were ready for that. But otherwise, no problems. All day I felt twinges of emotion out on the trail. I mean, I knew what we were doing. We were filming a mental health doc about how to restart your life. A film that seemed impossible just 2 years ago, and definitely 5 years ago when the doctor looked at me and said, "You have bipolar disorder." But now here we were. And as I felt those emotions, I kept having to squash them down all day because I knew I had so much to focus on and the task at hand was so hard. But once we got to the bike path, the emotions started to come out. And it started when Derek said, "Nice job, dude." Thanks, buddy. For sure. It was simple, but this guy dragged me everywhere. Of course, the finish line got emotional too, especially when my family, who I have never shared with you and never talked about on this channel, popped out and surprised me, having come to the finish line without telling me, along with my parents, to congratulate me. Of course, when that happened, I was a blubbering mess. We finished in 12 hours and 7 minutes. It was the most hard, steady effort I've ever done in my life. It's also the best I've ever felt in my life over 12 hours. And for those steady efforts, we finished 18th and 19th. Exactly where we were when we turned at the water cache. For 2 years on this channel, you've heard me talk about finding community, and this is the best example that I can show you of that. Derek, my SAG crew, everybody involved in this project are my community. They're my closest friends. Some of them don't know anything about bike racing, but they understand who I am, and we understand how to get the best version of each other out. So keep pressing forward, keep going out and putting yourself out there to find those people. It took me a long time to find this group of guys, but now that I've got them, I've got my crew. I had a lot of people ask me this weekend if I'm done now with the Maah Daah Hey, now that I've gone back and raced. And I'm not sure how to answer that. Its grip is strong and powerful. And honestly, the race has massively altered the course of my life. So probably not. And that's the big message here, is to go find adventure and chase after it. Find something that maybe seems like a little out of your comfort zone, and very well you might fail. But as you get back up and try it again, you're gonna go on a journey, and that journey is gonna be amazing. As always, thanks for hanging out today. The bootleg miles are not done just because the race is over. We got plenty more stories to tell, or we have stories that we wanted to tell earlier in the year and we just couldn't get to them, and you're gonna hear them over the next 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm really excited to share them with you. I'm so glad you were here. I'm so glad you've been along for the ride, and as always, get out, ride your bike, find adventure, and most importantly, remember you are loved.